Our team are handpicked. They're handpicked so you don't have to. These guys generally are time served, not always with chartered engineer. A lot of the engineers that I think we had as mentors in our earlier career, and some of us have been quite fortunate to have some great mentors, are just time served.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the MTD podcast. This one being filmed today here at our studios in Northamptonshire. I'm with Giovanni Albanese, a proud member of the MTDCNC team. And then you have, of course, myself, Paul Jones, the CEO of MTDCNC. And we're joined by Gem Drew today. Now, I'd normally take this opportunity to introduce our guest, but I think this is such a special podcast that I want to let this gentleman introduce himself. So, Gem, tell us who you are and why you're here today.
Paul, that's very kind of you, and thank you for having me on site today, and Gio as well. So my name is Gem Drew. I'm a 57-year-old chartered engineer. Basically been involved in engineering all of my life. My dad was a toolmaker, and said for the last sort of 40 years actually working in various different ends of the business, from CAD design right the way through to end product design. So yeah, I'm really here to talk about what I've built, what I hope will be a bit of a game changer for the industry, and hopefully something that will, as you say, make a significant difference to engineering in the UK.
Okay, now this is, as I say, it's a special podcast because we're going to talk about what you have created, and I think this is the perfect opportunity to explain what you've done, what you're bringing to industry, and what it's going to do for not just our viewers, but people around the country and companies.
Okay, just starting from the top, one of the biggest issues I think we all agree on is in the UK at the moment, skills are in such a short supply and taking such a high premium at the moment that we're struggling to be able to grow and develop our businesses. For me personally, being a business owner for many years, I struggled to hire within a 30-mile radius. Trying to get the right skills is always a difficult scenario. So really what I wanted to try and do is build something which was built for SMEs, built for small businesses in the UK, built around what their needs are and against a backdrop of trying to share the CEO's pain to ensure that we can actually then develop the businesses and actually create value. So the whole principle of actually working in a different way to how we've been working over the last sort of 30, 40 years and develop something which is really cognizant of what industry needs right today, which is basically skills on demand. And if we can try and get to that point where you actually only parachute in the skills that you need at that time that you need them, that's a very different model to the employed model. So that's really what I wanted to talk today about. And
that is what is beautifully named as a Giganeer.
Absolutely. So an engineer is a full-time employed, and there will always be a requirement for engineers in business. That's absolutely fine. But the ability to actually bring in skills on demand at high level to be able to fix problems and for them to come in, deliver those solutions and then disappear off your books, it's effectively engineering without the overhead. And this is a way of being able to actually then literally convert your business very quickly to being effectively working in an area where you are maybe lacking in skills or actually want to drive the business forward but can't recruit. I mean, I've seen recruiters basically take upwards of 6 months to actually recruit for critical roles. And it is a case of actually having these skills on demand means that you can get in and get out within a week or two and actually then be able to change the way that actually businesses develop skill set and hopefully then improve their bottom line.
Gem, absolute pleasure to have you in the
you,
MTD studio today, and great to be talking about this, something that's close to our hearts. And we've all seen the skill shortages in the industry. It's a problem that we've seen for many years now. And there's not been any real way of addressing this. I mean, the engineers are still coming through, but maybe not as quickly as we would like. The skilled engineers are probably leaving the industry more than the new engineers that are coming in. So effectively, Gem, is it safe to say that you're kind of hitting the skills gap but from the other end?
100%. I mean, most of the team actually we have operating in Giganeer are time served, typically have been in industry 30, 40 years themselves, are in a position in their lives where maybe a full-time employed role is actually not where they see themselves, but they want to actually make a change. They want to affect business. They want to leave business better than they found it. And there's a real motivation from this more mature age group to be able to go into businesses independently, provide service and support and literally develop value at that stage, but equally using the opportunity whilst they're in these businesses to help train, help develop and upskill, and actually impart the knowledge that they've created over that 30, 40 years to the younger age group, as well as actually the management team as well. Because in a freelancing domain, you sort of know what you know. But if you were imagining a community of freelancers, suddenly you then have the opportunity to have a full end-to-end solution. And this provision means that basically we can go in and do quick value, high win solutions and literally do it from every stage of the process, from design to CAD development, utilizing that sort of technology to be able to create, sort of marketing literature, for example, 3D renders, these sorts of things, right the way through to process optimization, tooling designs, jigs and fixtures, those sorts of bits and pieces. So it's all important short-term quick wins which will allow you to make a difference to your business.
I mean, I love the name, I love the brand. I think it's absolutely perfect. I mean, in this day and age, people don't even know what an engineer is. They've got so many different kind of opinions of what that means, whether it's someone that fixes your car, an electrical engineer, so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
And it's something that we need to address also. Through our own experience of visiting many engineering companies around the UK, one of the biggest things that we see and hear all the time is we haven't got enough skilled people. And in a lot of circumstances, it's actually stopping them from investing in new technologies because they just haven't got the skill or the resource to be able to take on that next project. Or for example, a company might want to get into aerospace work, but they haven't got the people to get the right aerospace accreditations or to implement the right processes. Is this the kind of examples where a Giganeer could help?
Absolutely. And there's a classic example of one company actually based in Sturchley in Birmingham, I believe we're going to be talking to actually in the next few weeks. These guys basically are involved actually in bespoke door handle manufacturing. It's a company called Instinct Hardware. And they had a particular need actually for designing a special tool, jig and fixture for being able to automate their process. They needed skills for not just design, but also skills in 3D printing. They needed skills that were able to be catapulted in quite quickly. And we were able to provide those levels of skills at a very short notice. And within the space of 8 weeks, had a 40% ROI. And the interesting thing with most businesses, they get worried about maybe working with outside contractors and freelancers because there's a worry about the level and the timing of the engagement. The whole principle of Giganeer is to look at the short-term quick wins. We're looking to get in, deliver the solution and get out. The reason for that, it's aligned to CEO outcomes, it's aligned to business outcomes, and effectively for us, it's like a flywheel motion. So the idea of getting in and getting out is really crucial to us, because the more time we can do that, the better we can actually then deploy the resources more across the UK.
So there's no fixed overhead to that business either. So that's so advantageous. To me, it seems like it's going to be a game changer for our industry, and there must be so much demand, Paul. Would you agree?
Yeah, I always try, and probably wrongly or rightly, try and look at the risks involved and the potential obstacles. And one I would bring up, and I'd be interested to hear your answer to, is often we go in companies and people are very opinionated on how they are already doing things correctly. They're already doing things in the best way they can, and they're resistant of change. And you might look at a component, a part, and we might think there's a lot better ways of doing that because of our experience and the geographics that we're covering around the world. I just wonder whether there's going to be, I'm doing that in the best way I can. How do we get this message across to people that actually there's kind of no risk to them, and there's an opportunity for improving their business with a Giganeer?
It's a very interesting issue that. A lot of the answers that are actually in the public domain right now are people trying to cascade their skills across business and trying to tell business owners that they're doing it wrong. I work from the premise that most CEOs run their own businesses and do it right. What they're struggling with is the ability and the additional bandwidth that's necessary to get them across the line. So often, most of the best stories and most of the best opportunities actually come from businesses themselves, just not having the ability to execute against them. So in simple terms, we don't go in and try and tell a business what you're doing wrong. Okay, we don't try and boil the ocean here. We go in and we actually then talk to them about their business. And if they've got a specific need, If we can uncover that need and uncover a short time frame over which that need can be realised and actuated on, that's what we do. So the difference, I guess, with Giganeer is rather than trying to boil the ocean, we go in, help them fix individual specific problems that are related to their business, and then move on. So doing it with a very, very limited engagement, but with a high added value solution.
And as it stands at the moment, can this be any business in a manufacturing arena?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest with you, we have a very, very broad skill set from automotive to aerospace. We have basically process engineers. We have people involved actually with the end-to-end solutions provision for example, digital workflows. One of the biggest issues in business at the moment is small businesses can't scale. And we're using things like, for example, wearable hardware, which basically allows you to be able to be anywhere at any time. And actually realizing your customers can self-serve on a lot of these issues. So rather than sending out limited engineering resource all across the UK, by using wearable tech, you can actually then send the tech out and then go back to base and actually then report back as to actually what's going on and actually then get the client to self-serve. So this is a way of being able to utilize technology in the best possible way and use this idea of being decentralized to be able to actually scale your business. It's actually a strength, not a weakness.
I absolutely love the points that you've just raised, and I think that your point, Paul, is so valid. I mean, you don't know your problems if you don't know. You've been doing something for such a long time.
There's a tunnel. There can often be this kind of tunnel vision. This is how we've done it. This is how we've always done it. And some of the problem is you have exactly what you've said. You've had so many people bombarding them saying, look, I can do it better. I can do it. When the reality is, in a lot of instances, they may not, but they're just can't call them chances. I mean that with the greatest respect. Whereas this is very different.
It's completely different, and I think that again, for our own experience of visiting engineering shops, a lot of engineers are cocooned within their own engineering environment, and maybe don't know of better ways to produce parts. But I think what commonality that they've all got is, especially nowadays, they need to invest in the latest technologies and innovation to be competitive, not just in the UK but globally. And I think that what you've just mentioned, digital working and Industry 4.0, automation, the implementation of automation processes, whether that be in any industry or sector, 3D printing you mentioned, a new emerging technology. These are new projects and innovative solutions that they need to be investing in, and if they haven't got the skill set to be able to implement them within their manufacturing facility, they're going to be left behind. And I would assume that again, Giganeer would be absolutely a perfect solution for some of these.
I would question that one of the first things I would ask you, Jem, as a company is, okay, so the Giganeers, how qualified are they? How do I know they're going to turn up and do the job? How do I know they're not going to walk off with my vernier calipers or my or my PC? These are things that would go through a business owner's mind, aren't they?
Or take on that knowledge to another company.
Yes,
absolutely right. I mean, with regards to that, of course, I totally understand. I mean, our team are handpicked. They're handpicked so you don't have to. These guys generally are time served, not always with chartered engineer. A lot of the engineers that I think we had as mentors in our earlier career, and some of us have been quite fortunate to have some great mentors, are just time served. Time served with really high levels of credentials. So typically what we're not looking at here is operator level. We're looking at business leads. We're looking at being able to actually then solve these issues, but also end-to-end sort of solutions. A bit like having a non-exec director, but one that actually gets the hands dirty and fixes problems for you. So at the end of the day, that I think is the engagement cycle. And certainly for us, it's a case of that's what our strengths have been to date. And I think, again, just reimagine that future state. Just imagine, right, if you've got a problem with something, you either use ChatGPT or you Google it, don't you? Imagine now that you've actually got an opportunity to actually then go in and say, right, I want an engineer for this, I want an engineer for that. Suddenly you're in a position whereby I said you can bring them in, get the job done, and walk away. Short engagements, high levels of return.
I was just going to say to you before it's a little bit of an extension of my background when I used to sell machine tools. Was we used to go to market, look at parts that are being made, try and find better ways for those parts to be made, and often we would take them back to the company that we work for. We would do certain things like time studies, looking at different machinery that can make these parts. And I know I'm kind of ring fencing this around the machining area. It's kind of it is an extension of that. And what I found as time unfolded and as engineers and the skill shortage became very apparent is that companies would then lean on me to do that for them.
Yes.
And this is a further extension of that, really, isn't it? There's a lot of similarities there.
Absolutely, but it's also one step up on that in the fact that it's that, but with a level of independence. So my team, for example, right, if you could see an opportunity for a 5-axis CNC mill, for example, we wouldn't necessarily recommend one over another. We would actually then define what the problem looks like. Okay, we'd put it in terms that basically then you could go out yourself and then look at effectively the sort of technology that you would need. So as a way of being able to do it independently, as a business owner myself and as a CEO for myself, actually in my previous life, I couldn't get that level of independence. People were trying to sell me machines. The thing about Giganeer is we're not trying to sell you anything. We're trying to diagnose what your problem looks like so that you can actually then take an independent review on that and either take further action or agree at that stage that you're going to actually then shelve it until that moment comes in your growth cycle that actually then say when the time comes we'll do this. So again, independence is one of the biggest issues I think that Giganeer can actually provide in the industry today.
I think for the UK, Giganeer is absolutely essential, and it's going to be a game changer, as you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, without a shadow of doubt, in my opinion. And in regards to the onboarding process, what does this look like? So I'm the owner of an engineering company. I want to improve a process. I want to implement an automation cell, so on and so forth. Sure. What would the onboarding process look like, and how does it work?
Sure. So for the onboarding process for a client, rather than actually one of our team, is that generally we would actually then engage in a 20 to 30 minute chat with you to actually try and uncover what the issues are. And clearly, if there is a potential for a short-term quick win, which we can actually then deliver on, then obviously clearly we will engage. If we feel at that stage that there is no clear quick win that we can actually then look at for you as a client, we'll actually decline or refer you on to some other sort of resources that we can move on. We come on the benefit of not having to engage. It is a case of very much how we work together collaboratively. And I don't know whether you're like me, but I would rather actually engage with somebody who said, actually, I don't know the answer to that one, but you may want to go and have a chat with X, Y, Z. For us, it's a case of honesty actually is the most important part of this process. So for us, the engagement cycle is a quick 20, 30 minute discussion. If we can find and we engage at that stage, then we'll take it to the next level. The next level normally is the requirement of building a statement of work. That statement of work falls outside IR35, so it basically makes it very, very easy for manufacturing companies to engage. And nominally, there's a charge of £1,500 plus VAT. What that does is creates a recipe for success. Normally, that actually is associated with an on-site visit with a client, where we actually then talk about the issues, refine the actual solutions, and at that stage then create what is effectively a recipe for success. Now, at that stage, you can either choose to go through Giganeer to deliver that recipe, or you can do it independently. So for us, it's a case of providing independent advice and support for your business, which is not framed by us trying to sell you a machine. It's framed in, from our experience, this is what we would do. And then you'll have the benefit of all of the team behind you saying this is actually an authenticated solution.
So how would you pick the right team for the job?
Okay, so what we have about 200 engineers, 200 Giganeers basically behind the scenes. And what we do, we look at building cross-functional teams. So the idea here is that if, for example, you have an automotive client, obviously the initial first stab will be looking at those who actually have an automotive background, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have got the best skill set to provide the solution. So what we would generally do is maybe pull 1, 2, or even 3 Giganeers together to provide a full end-to-end solution. But you don't have to worry about that. We just aggregate the skills according to your need. At that stage, we then deliver that through one particular Giganeer who will be responsible for project managing it from start to finish. So it's a simple case of you have a single point of entry, a single person to basically build a rapport with, and at that stage, basically knowing that the resources that independent individual has is a team of almost 200 Giganeers behind the scenes that he can pull on to actually then provide that level of support and help.
Is this possible? Because I think this, for my point I make about where people think that they're doing everything right and there is no room for improvement in certain processes, is there a way of engaging with your services, with a Giganeer and saying, do you know what, I think I'm doing everything right, but I don't know. Come and show me that I'm not. You know, is that something that rather than coming to you with a specific problem, I can go, do you know what, I think we've got it absolutely spot on here. I think we've got the right inventory, the right machinery, the right processes, but you may tell me different. And if you can, we'll work together.
Absolutely. I mean, we engage typically at multiple levels, and that can be one of them. For us, it's a case of we would welcome the opportunity to do an on-site. We would actually do what we call a walk the line. We'd take a look at what your processes look like. And of course, we would make an independent assessment of that. But generally, we would also then try and discuss with you before we engage, what are the areas that you're looking to improve? And I would suggest that most CEOs don't take the view of we're perfect. Most CEOs do understand that they have issues in their business, whether that be a people issue, whether it be a process issue, whether it be a skills issue, whatever. And what we can then do is we can actually then put them in the direction of travel that is necessary, but like a non-exec director, but actually a non-exec director that understands business and understands that and might have 30 or 40 years of relevant experience, maybe in a different sector, but maybe in the same sector. And for us, it's being able to actually then join those dots for you.
Because one of the things that we're focusing on heavily here is the technical aspect.
Sure.
What about from a commercial perspective? Because as a business owner,
Sure.
let's say, for example, I make 300 of these a day.
Mm-hmm.
I want as much profit as I can out of that,
Sure.
and I want it turned into cash as quickly as I possibly can.
Sure.
And they're the two most important things to me.
Mm-hmm.
Does that come into it too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the examples, as I mentioned earlier with Instinct Hardware, is actually looking at the way that they actually process. And we actually map that out and looking at ways that we can do things in cycle, looking at ways that we can actually improve the process with regards to actually limiting the number of touch points. And there's a whole range of different solutions and scenarios. I think there is no one quick answer in this. And I think the great thing about Giganeer is that we've got a very, very broad group of engineers, female, male, young and old, who actually bring a dynamic to the decision-making process. And I think what that does, when you're a business owner in an engineering or manufacturing business, life can be very lonely. You don't really know who you can trust. And I think for us, we've been there, we've seen it. And if we as a collective can actually make you better, and actually then engage quickly with you to make that better. For us, it's actually not just the value we create, but it's actually the relationship we build with you as well. And what we're finding is most of the engagements that we're having, even though they're only anywhere between, I think the shortest is actually 48 hours through to an 8-week delivery. We're not looking much beyond about 8 weeks with a typical delivery for ourselves. We're finding the number of times we're getting called back in is meaning that this is becoming almost self-fulfilling now as an opportunity for us. So I think we're on the right track. It's just a case of how do we scale this nationally? And the whole idea of Giganeer is to become a national resource for engineering and manufacturing to be able to pull on as and when they need.
I think we'll be seeing a lot more of Giganeer on MTDCNC channels over the coming months and years to come, which is really exciting. And the other big aspect of all of this is, we are going back to the skills gap. We are addressing the skills gap from the other end. But these Giganeers are very highly skilled engineers that have had years and years of experience in top of some of the biggest companies in the UK. They're also going to be passing on their knowledge and expertise to the people that they're visiting on a daily basis.
I mean, it's very interesting when you actually look at the educational cycle at the moment with T-levels. A lot of people obviously be understanding T-levels and also the apprenticeship sort of skills. For us, we're almost recreating that informal network that we always used to have when we were working in business 20, 30 years ago, where there was enough fat in the business to be able to actually lean on mentors, maybe from within your organisation or from outside. What we're doing now is we're actually finding my team are spending as much time on developing sort of financial outcomes as they are actually with the soft skills to be able to actually then train the next level of engineers to become better than we ever were. That motivation, it's quite funny, we within our group, autonomy, mastery and purpose, those are the three key things that we as a business enterprise want to basically give out into the market. So it's not just about making money, it's actually about leaving the business better than we found it. And I think for us, part of our responsibility, and I think that's already inbuilt into our DNA, is the fact that we're actually then training the next generation of engineers to become even better. And we're also talking with the likes of the universities as well with regards to the opportunity of, rather than having a one-year placement, looking at the opportunity of actually having multiple placements, because a lot of manufacturing companies want industry-ready candidates straight from college and university. but often they've only had experience maybe in one particular area. So what we're trying to do is try and convince the powers that be of having multiple different involvements in industry, touch points in industry, means that when they come out into industry, there is certainly a lot more ready to be able to actually then embrace the sort of culture that we've got actually in this sector of the world. So for us, I think there's a lot of work still to be done, but it is a case of we've got to start somewhere, and that's where we're working.
Well, I think it's absolutely brilliant. I'm really excited about this
It
collaboration.
is. I mean, it's a really good product, Jim. I mean, from the other side of the coin, we talk about the company and the benefits to the company and benefits generally to the industry, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, there's the Giganeers themselves. There'll be thousands of people watching, listening to this, and there'll be skilled engineers listening to this thinking, how do I become a Giganeer?
Well, that's lovely to hear, and thank you. I must admit,
I'm even thinking it myself. I haven't got the skills, but I'd like a 3-day week.
and this is the thing, isn't it? I think it's a case of the future of work is a very different place these days to what it was. I mean, even the last 3 or 4 years, if it hasn't taught us something to actually think a little bit more agile. And so for us, a workforce of the future will be obviously skilled engineers that's going to be full-time employed, but actually then literally catapulting this sort of additional resource over the top. I think for us, we do see ourselves as being the aggregation point for this sort of level of knowledge. So I would welcome any opportunities to actually talk with the team out there at all. If you think that this is a way of working that would actually work well with you. Obviously, as we're starting to build, one of the things we would say is that we just need to make sure that, from our side, that we get the right attitudes, the right skills, and make sure that we build it properly. So, yeah, from our side of things, I'd welcome that opportunity. And I think going forward, it will map out a little bit more about how engineering can be built for the future. So I think there will always be a space for engineers, and that will always be the middle ground. And, of course, that's going to be where everybody's going to be. But the Giganeers are going to be operating around that peripheral space, basically then taking on the heavy lift that's necessary to give you that extra level of drive and performance.
Brilliant. Jem, how do people get in contact with you and your company?
Absolutely, thank you. Obviously through MTD and ourselves, so giganeer.com. Basically, if you have a look on our website, you'll see what we're all about, and obviously then be happy to field any particular issues you've got with the telephone, obviously, as well. So happy to engage however you wish.
And with the Factory Now incentive, the MTD Factory Now incentive, we're working in collaboration with you.
Absolutely.
With that, and any new Factory Now members will get a free Giganeer consultation. So like Paul mentioned, your business may be running perfectly, but if you wanted a call with Jem to discuss some of your processes, is available for a call.
We're proud to be part of that, and thank you for actually including us on that. We really do want to add value to business, so it is a case of said we would love to engage with you, absolutely.
Brilliant, thanks, Jem.
Thank you so much.
Great stuff. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. That's been another edition of the MTD podcast.
Thanks for listening to the MTD podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on mtdcnc.com.